Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to my channel Internal Audit Lab by Noshin. Today I will discuss the rest of the part of Quality Assurance and Improvement Program, which are QAIP reporting requirement and disclosure of conformance versus non-conformance, and both the topic will be tested in the exam in basic aspect. So let's begin the video. Reporting on the QAIP has been described in Attribute Standard 1320, where it is said that the Chief Audit Executive must communicate the results of the Quality Assurance and Improvement Program to senior management and the board. The disclosure should include number 1, the scope and frequency of both the internal and external assessment. Number 2, the qualification and independence of the assessor or assessment team, including potential conflict of interest. So the qualification and independence has already been described in the last video. Number 3, conclusion of the assessor, and number 4, corrective action plans. There is also a timing of the communication of the QAIP results depending on the type of assessment. So if the type of assessment is ongoing monitoring, then the result is communicated to the board and senior management at least annually. If the type of assessment is periodic self-assessment, then the result of the assessment has been communicated to the board and senior management upon completion of such assessment. And if the assessment is of external type, then the results are communicated to the board and senior management upon completion of such assessment. Conclusion of assessor. The communicated results of the QAIP must include the assessors or assessment team's conclusion with respect to the following. Number 1, the degree of the internal audit activities conformance with the standards and code of ethics. Number 2, the internal audit activities conformance with its charter, plans, policies, procedures, practices, and any applicable legislative and regulatory requirement. Number 3, the efficiency and effectiveness of the internal audit activity in carrying out its responsibilities. And number 4, the continuous improvement efforts within the internal audit activity. Action plan. The board is required to receive a copy of the external quality assessment report. It is the Chief Audit Executive's responsibility to respond to the recommendations and provide an action plan for remediation. So during the external and internal assessment, the assessment may identify areas that are not in conformance with the standards, code of ethics, or other applicable criteria. Or the assessment may identify opportunities for improving the internal audit activity, or it may provide recommendations to address non-conformance as well as opportunities for improvement. So in all these cases, the CE must develop action plan to address findings and recommendations from the internal or external assessment and communicate those action plans to senior management and the board. So what is conformance or what is non-conformance? So conformance means that when the practice of internal audit activity satisfy the requirement of the definition of internal audit, the code of ethics and the standard, and when the opposite is happened, then it's a non-conformance. That means there is a deficiency in the practice of internal audit activity, and these deficiencies are so significant that they may impair the activity's ability to discharge its responsibilities. Now, there are three types of conformance statement can be used. Number 1 is generally conform, which is the top rating, which means that internal activity has a charter, policies, and processes, and that the execution and result of these are judged to be in conformance with the standards. The second type of conformance statement is partially conform. That means deficiencies in practice are judged to deviate from the standard, but these deficiencies do not preclude the internal audit activity from performing its responsibility. And number 3 is does not conform, which means deficiencies are so significant that they may seriously impair or preclude the internal audit activity from performing adequately in all significant areas of its responsibilities. Now, the indication of conformance. When can we understand that it is conforming? The internal audit activity has been in existence for less than 5 years, and the periodic self-assessment conducted at the communicated frequency continue to support that inclusion. If it happens, then we can say it's an indication of conformance. Then also an external assessment validates conformance with the standards, and the internal assessment continue to support that conclusion. So if that happens, then we can say that it is a indication of conformance. What are the instances of non-conformance? It can be impairment to independence or objectivity, or if there is a scope or resource limitations, or if there is a failure to obtain an external assessment within a 5-year period. So some common example of non-conformance may include, for example, John is an internal auditor and he has been assigned to audit the procurement department of large company, and the procurement manager happens to be John's spouse. Then it's a non-conformance. Also, say for example, Cynthia is a chief audit executive, but due to time pressure, she did not arrange for an external quality assessment since her department had the initial external assessment 7 years ago. So this is a non-conformance. Also, say for another example, Sophie, the CE of the first bank, prepared the annual audit plan without considering the associated risk. She thought that the risk assessment and prioritization exercise was time consuming, and since she has been the CE for the past 3 years, she can choose engagement without the need for a structured risk assessment exercise. So this is also an example of non-conformance. So this is all about it. I hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching.